Traoré launches first locally produced gold bar, taking full control of gold mines in Burkina Faso. Just 2 years ago, President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso made a bold promise. Standing tall before his people, he declared, "Soon, the factories will rise." At the time, many saw it as a dream ambitious, maybe even impossible. But today, that dream is unfolding right before our eyes. Last month, history was made with the opening of Burkina Faso's very first tomato processing factory. And now, another milestone, an even bigger one. The Burkinabe Gold Factory has officially opened its doors. But this isn't just about building another factory. This is about transformation. Because for the very first time, Burkina Faso has produced its own homegrown gold bars, mined, refined, and crafted entirely within its borders. A breathtaking achievement. And let's be honest, how many gold-rich African countries can say the same? But here's the real question. How did Traoré pull this off? Let's rewind a bit. From the moment Captain Traoré stepped into power, one thing became clear: he wasn't here to maintain the status quo. He came to break the chains of dependency. His mission? Total sovereignty. Not just military independence, but full control over Burkina Faso's economy, its resources, its future. He started by cutting ties with France, removing foreign troops, and ending military cooperation with its former colonial ruler. That was step one. Then, on January 23, 2024, he took a massive leap forward. In the Kosodo Industrial Zone, just outside the capital city of Ouagadougou, Traoré inaugurated Burkina Faso's first ever mining waste processing plant. This wasn't just another ribbon-cutting ceremony. It was the birth of a new era. The facility is designed to handle the byproducts of gold mining, turning what was once waste into valuable resources. And here's the kicker. The technology used to build the plant was developed entirely within Burkina Faso. Let that sink in. At the launch, Traoré proudly declared, "Burkina Faso is the second country in Africa to develop this kind of technology." He called it nothing short of a Burkinabe revolution. And the message didn't stop there. Traoré invited other African nations to send their mining residues to Burkina Faso. Why? Because now Burkina Faso has the tools, the knowledge, and the technology to process it. According to Joaquim Maria Manuel Tapsoba, CEO of Golden Hand, the company behind the plant, the entire system was developed by local experts. This isn't just a win for Burkina Faso, it's a statement to the continent. Africa can and must take charge of its own wealth. The ownership model is also telling. The plant is 40% owned by the state and 60% by Golden Hand South Africa, a strategic partnership, but one that keeps national interests front and center. Burkina Faso's Minister of Mines summed it up perfectly. Our country has clearly decided to assert itself and fully assume its sovereignty, especially in the mining sector. That's why developing local solutions for processing gold residues isn't just smart, it's absolutely necessary. And here's the big payoff. Just 1 year after that waste plant was inaugurated, Golden Hand has officially produced Burkina Faso's first ever domestically refined gold bars. Think about that. Not just digging gold from the ground, but keeping the value, the jobs, the technology all right here, at home. This is more than progress. This is a new path. This is a new Burkina Faso. Imagine this. Piles of dusty leftovers from an old gold mine, scraps once thought worthless, are now sparking a revolution in Burkina Faso. That's right. What was once considered waste, called fine coal, the remnants left behind after gold is extracted, has now become a gold mine in itself. These neglected scraps, once abandoned at the Essakane mine, have just produced 44 gleaming gold bars, weighing a total of 93.2 kilograms. And this isn't some foreign company cashing in Burkina Faso, doing it on its own soil. Those bars, hand-delivered to the Ministry of Economy. This isn't just a transaction, this is a statement. Prime Minister Apollinaire Joachim Kielem de Tambala received the bars on behalf of President Ibrahim Traoré in the capital, Ouagadougou. And as he stood before the crowd, he didn't mince words. He called the moment a living proof of the government's vision. Wealth created by the people, for the people, using Burkina Faso's own hands, minds, and resources. But this is just the beginning. Plans are already underway to process nearly 300 more tons of this so-called waste, turning what was once discarded into national treasure. And here's the game changer. From now on, Burkina Faso's fine coal will no longer be shipped abroad for processing. The value stays home. According to Joachim Marie Emmanuel Tapsoba, the head of Golden Hand SA, the company running the operation, the technology used is both high-tech and environmentally responsible. More importantly, he said, this first batch of gold bars is proof that the Burkinabe government is serious about one thing, serving its people. But let's pause for a second and ask, what does this really mean? Here's the answer. Every one of those 44 gold bars carries the official seal of Burkina Faso. Not just a mark of origin, it's a symbol of pride, power, and economic independence. Those bars are now stored securely, building a reserve that could soon back the nation's economy. And that brings us to something even bigger brewing behind the scenes. If you've been following the Alliance of Sahel States, AES Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, you've probably heard whispers of a bold plan. Ditching the CFA franc, the outdated colonial currency still tied to France. And while no official currency has been launched yet, many believe Burkina Faso is quietly preparing for that next step by building its own gold reserves. Why? Because under the current system, these nations don't even have full control over their own money. The so-called Central Bank of West African states, it's widely seen as just an arm of the Bank of France. And the kicker? Burkina Faso and other Francophone nations are still required to keep half of their reserves in French banks. But not anymore, not under Traoré. Determined to break the cycle of dependence, President Traoré made another historic move last year. He officially launched Burkina Faso's very own Treasury Deposit Bank, with its headquarters inside the National Public Treasury in Kalouba. That's not just a new bank, it's a turning point. With this institution, Burkina Faso is starting to manage its own money, its own reserves, and its own future, without relying on France or foreign systems. It's a clear sign. The country is marching toward monetary freedom. So, what does all of this mean? It means Burkina Faso is no longer just digging gold out of the ground. It's digging itself out of economic captivity. One gold bar, one bold move, one institution at a time. Here's a headline you didn't see coming. Burkina Faso is taking back control of its money and its gold. For decades, half of Burkina Faso's financial reserves had to be stored in French banks. That's right, 50% of its own money, locked away under foreign oversight. But not anymore. Thanks to the creation of the Burkina Faso Treasury Deposit Bank, that chapter is officially closing. This isn't just a bank, it's a bold declaration of independence. The Treasury Deposit Bank is built to serve everyone. Whether you're in the city, deep in a rural village, or anywhere in between, this banking network will stretch across regional, provincial, and even departmental levels to make sure no one's left behind. But this bank isn't just for everyday citizens. It's open for business with government agencies, public institutions, local authorities, NGOs, international organizations, and private companies. In other words, it's here to be the financial engine behind the entire nation. So, what does it actually do? It handles account services, processes transactions, collects revenue, and here's the game changer. It's launching digital payment systems and innovative banking services tailored to the modern world. But the real power move? It allows Burkina Faso to finally operate its financial system without having to go through the Central Bank of West African states, which many see as a colonial holdover. France has long used this setup to hold sway over its former colonies, including Burkina Faso. And it goes deeper. European countries that don't even have gold mines like France have built up massive gold reserves. How? By exploiting African countries through their gold mining companies. These foreign corporations have extracted tons of gold from Burkina Faso cheaply, quietly, and without returning much, if anything, in taxes or national benefit. This is exactly why Captain Ibrahim Traoré decided to put a stop to it. One of the key ways he's reclaiming the country's gold is through the mining waste processing plant. What used to be thrown away fine coal from old mines is now being refined into gold right here in Burkina Faso. And with the new Treasury Deposit Bank, the gold no longer leaves the country, it stays, stored securely, as part of the nation's growing reserves. But here's the bigger picture. Burkina Faso isn't just sitting on a little gold. It's one of Africa's top gold producers, with gold making up a massive 37% of all national exports as of 2020. It's also the country's #1 employer, especially through artisanal mining, small-scale gold digging, where over 1 million Burkinabe are involved. But until recently, Burkina Faso didn't actually control its gold industry. Instead, it was dominated by major foreign companies like Endeavour Mining from London, West African Resources from Australia, Nordgold from Russia, and Orezone Gold from Canada. Add to that a far more dangerous presence: terrorist groups. Armed jihadists have exploited artisanal mining to fund terror operations, taking over gold-rich areas and turning natural wealth into fuel for chaos. Captain Traoré didn't ignore the crisis. Back in 2022, he warned that tons of gold were being smuggled out of the country, often ending up funding extremist violence. That same year, terrorism forced the shutdown of 4 major industrial mines and the abandonment of nearly 700 small-scale gold panning sites, crippling national output. Faced with these twin threats, foreign exploitation and terrorist control, Traoré took action. He started reshaping the system, building national institutions, reclaiming what had been lost, and using every tool available from technology to policy to make sure Burkina Faso's gold doesn't just leave the ground, it stays home and powers the future. Stick around, because this isn't just the story of one country, it's the story of a continent waking up to its own strength. Like, comment, and subscribe to keep up with the African nations taking charge of their destiny. Let's rewind to 2023, the year Captain Ibrahim Traoré drew a line in the sand. That's when he took a bold first step. He banned the export of gold. No more raw Burkinabe gold, slipping through the cracks, smuggled abroad, fueling terrorism, or enriching foreign powers. Then, in February 2024, Burkina Faso's newly appointed Minister of Mines, Yacouba Zabré, dropped another game-changing announcement: the suspension of gold and precious metal exports by artisanal miners, effective immediately. Why? Because the entire sector needed a reset. The government wanted to clean house to organize the chaos, cut off illegal flows, and bring structure to an industry long plagued by corruption, smuggling, and exploitation. Zabré didn't specify how long the suspension would last, but he made one thing clear: any groups with material ready for export could report to SONAP, the National Society for Precious Commodities, for compensation. This was more than a crackdown. It was a transition to something better. And it wasn't just Burkina Faso making moves. Countries like Zimbabwe and Namibia have done the same, banning the export of unprocessed minerals to build value at home. Burkina Faso is now following suit, determined to stop terrorism at its financial source and finally turn its natural wealth into national wealth. But Traoré wasn't stopping at bans and suspensions. In November 2023, he broke ground on Burkina Faso's own gold refinery, a project that would have seemed like a fantasy just a few years ago. Led by Morena Gold, a local partner, the refinery is designed to process up to 400 kilograms of gold per day. That's not just a factory, it's a statement. We refine our gold right here at home. At the launch, Traoré said it plainly. There's no more sending our gold abroad for refining. We do it here because we know what's in our gold, and that matters. The project is expected to produce its first batch of 22-karat gold bars within 11 months, and it's creating 100 direct jobs and potentially 5,000 indirect jobs along the way. And it's not just about refining. The refinery will house a jewelry store and serve as the future headquarters of the National Substances Corporation, the state agency overseeing precious commodities. Shortly after the refinery launch, Traoré reshuffled leadership in the mining sector, replacing then-Minister Simon Pierre Boussine with Yacouba Zabré, the same minister who announced the export suspension. This wasn't just symbolic, it was strategic. He needed a team aligned with his mission to reclaim control of the country's resources. In October 2023, Traoré's government introduced a new gold sales royalty system, replacing the old flat 5% tax. Now, gold sold above $1,500 per ounce is taxed at a higher rate, ensuring the country gets its fair share when prices soar. It's a smart move, one that signals Burkina Faso is learning to play the game on its own terms. But to truly regain control, Traoré had to confront the darkest threat of all: terrorism. That's why he ordered military operations to liberate gold-rich areas from extremist control. One key target, the Djibo Greenstone Belt in northern Burkina Faso, a geologic treasure trove rich in ancient rock formations and teeming with gold. This region could be a gold mine, literally for Burkina Faso's future. But for years, it's been overrun by armed groups who've turned illegal mining into a cash machine for terror. The consequences? Massive losses in national revenue. Environmental destruction, social unrest, and a wave of violence, attacks on mining sites, kidnappings, extortion, and more. It created a zone of fear, driving away legitimate investors and leaving locals trapped in a vicious cycle. But Traoré's message is clear: this ends now. His strategy isn't just military, it's economic, strategic, and deeply patriotic. Step by step, he's reclaiming the mines, refining the gold, reshaping the laws, and rewriting the future of Burkina Faso. And the world? It's starting to pay attention. The fight for Burkina Faso's future isn't just political or economic, it's being waged deep in the Sahel, across rugged terrain where terrorists once thrived under the cover of remote, nearly unreachable land. So, what did Captain Ibrahim Traoré do? He launched a full-scale military offensive, determined to dismantle terrorist strongholds and bring stability back to the heart of the nation. And one place became ground zero in that battle: the Djibo Greenstone Belt, a region rich in gold and strategic importance. This was no ordinary operation. The Djibo Belt, especially areas like Safan and Commune 6, had long been under terrorist control since 2019, in fact. It had become a lawless zone, where locals were forced to either flee or live under the thumb of armed groups. But under Traoré's command, the Burkinabe military turned the tables. The area had been a base of operations for terrorists for years, but now it was finally back under government control. The operation wasn't easy. This was high-stakes combat, marked by ambush risks, hidden explosives, and unpredictable attacks. Yet the Burkinabe forces moved with precision. Their commandos swept through with extreme caution, anticipating traps and establishing control without losing a single soldier in the early phase. They systematically searched for hidden weapons, reclaimed stolen property, and began restoring order. But the real game changer? Technology. Traoré's modernized military didn't go in blind. The army deployed drones not just for surveillance, but for targeted airstrikes. These UAVs provided real-time intelligence and struck enemy hideouts with surgical precision. Terrorist positions that had taken years to fortify were crushed in minutes. That shift in tactics, leveraging modern warfare tools like drones, turned the tide. Terrorist forces, caught off guard and overwhelmed, suffered heavy losses. What was once considered a long, drawn-out fight turned into a series of rapid victories. It was clear this was a new era for the Burkinabe military. And it didn't happen overnight. Since coming to power, President Traoré has prioritized military reform. He invested in training, equipment, and international partnerships to ensure that his troops weren't just brave, but effective. This successful offensive is proof that those reforms are working. But it's not just about security, it's also about opportunity. With the Djibo Greenstone Belt back in government hands, Burkina Faso is ready to tap into its immense gold potential. This isn't just a symbolic victory, it's an economic one. Now, with a national gold refinery up and running, Burkina Faso can process its own gold on its own soil, adding value, creating jobs, and keeping wealth in the country instead of sending it overseas. The ripple effect could be massive. A major boost to GDP. Thousands of new jobs, not just in mining, but in transportation, logistics, manufacturing, and more. A reduced poverty rate, as local communities gain access to real economic opportunities and long-term infrastructure development. Better roads, clean water systems, reliable electricity that improves life for everyone, not just the miners. It's the kind of transformation that builds real independence. Traoré's fight isn't just against armed groups, it's against the legacy of exploitation. And step by step, he's taking Burkina Faso back its security, its gold, its economy, and its future. What do you think about this bold turnaround? Could Burkina Faso become a model for other African nations? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, comment, and share this video. This story deserves to be heard.